Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to replace the spark plugs in a 2020 Yamaha MT-03. I've already got started on this job, but mostly I've just removed the plastic, and I'm going to walk you through what I've done there and then show you where we're headed. Hopefully you find this video helpful. If you do, please like and subscribe. All right, this is Mrs. Blue Ridge Rider's bike, and you can see she's right at 13,221 miles, which is right where the book says to replace your plug. So let me show you where we are. Right now I've really just pulled the plastic off. The tank's still in place, got the seat off. I do have the bike up on a rear stand. That's not really necessary. I just do that because it keeps the bike a little more stable while we're working on it. The tank has got to come off for us to get to the spark plugs, which you can barely see right in here on top of the head, at least the ignition coils. And then we'll see what we got here in a few minutes when we get the tank pulled off. But right now I've got the plastics off, and I've got my bolts all in baggies labeled up. I like to do this, just helps it help you find stuff and easier to put back on. So I've got these labeled air scoop, put them together. What I had to do is I pulled the rear cowl off and this little protector to pull the seat off, just exactly like it shows in the book. Then I pulled these side panels off. I did that. There's actually a video I have on replacing the air filter where I show you how to pull the side panels off. And then I came up and started with the air scoops next. And from the air scoops, I went into the tank side panels, and then I went into the center tank cover, and then the actual tank cover itself. All in all, this took me maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes to do, something like that. It goes pretty quick. The tools are pretty simple. Got a Phillips head screwdriver, a socket wrench. I had to use a 8 and 10 millimeter socket, and then just a couple of different Allen wrenches. And that's about it. I mean, it's pretty simple tool-wise so far. And now we're getting ready to pull the tank off, which looks like I've got a couple of bolts back here and a couple of bolts up front. I'm going to kind of study it a little bit, make sure I know exactly what I'm doing. And we're going to pull the tank off and see what we've got to get to underneath the tank. I think there's some wiring and other things we got to pull out of the way. So stand by and we'll be back shortly. All right, so let me show you what I ended up taking out to get the tank free. There were a couple of bolts here that I've taken loose, and then I chose to take a couple of bolts here loose. There's a couple more here that hold this bracket. It's a little hard to see from that view, but there's a bracket right here holding the front of the tank, but these holes look slotted, so I'm guessing they may use that to line the tank up. So I chose to take these two out right here. I'm just gonna lift the tank up, try to set it back here on this rag. I may decide to unhook the fuel line at that point, but I want to see what I've got first. Okay, so I was able to take the tank and just set it back on the frame without unhooking any of the electronics or fuel lines or anything like that. And I believe with that, I have great access to the spark plugs. They're straight down below. It's a little hard to see, but on the side, each side right here is where the ignition packs are, so I don't have to mess with that. I've just got to pull the boots off of the plugs, and I should have good access to the plugs right there. All right, I believe I can just pull the boots straight off. They're probably pretty snug. I'm going to give it a little twist and see if we get there. Yep, there we go. Got the first boot off. All right, so I've got this boot out. I'm just going to set it off to the side right here. See if I can get the other one loose. Got to pull pretty good. They're pretty snug. There we go. Got that out as well. I am going to put a little dielectric compound on the rubber boots before I put them back in. All right, I'm not sure what size socket we need there, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at one of the new plugs. And it just so happens that I have a spark plug tool that I'd bought for working on my cars. It's a 5/8. It's got the rubber piece. It's got a nice little swivel action on it and a really long extension. Looks like it's going to work great for this particular job. And looks like the plug fits in there nicely. So I'm going to give this a shot and see if I can get it broke loose. So my extension in that socket looks like it's going to fit nicely. Just got to see if I can get them broken loose. And we got it. Wasn't too tight. I'm going to show you guys another trick that I like to use. So I'm going to pull my wrench off of there and then Just keep going with the extension for a minute. I'm not going to get them all the way loose, although I could, but I'm going to get them most of the way loose. A lot of turns on those threads. And then I'm going to take my wrench out. Oh, actually, this is a spark plug wrench, so never mind. What I was going to show you is if you don't have a spark plug wrench, if all you had was a regular socket, you can take a piece of rubber tubing or hose and stick it over the plug and pull it out. But since this is an actual spark plug wrench with a little rubber boot in it, I think we're going to be fine. And there we go. So let's take a look at what we've got. Now, I am by no means an expert at looking at plugs, but that looks pretty good to me. All said and done. Let's zoom in and take a little closer look. I don't see anything wrong with that plug. To me, that looks pretty good. 13,000 miles. We probably could have kept going, put a few more miles on it. Let's compare it to a new plug. So there's a new plug. These are iridium plugs. The originals are not. So it looks a lot different. We should get a little more mileage out of these. These are not the hottest plugs. So if you were racing this bike, a lot of stuff I've read, you might actually want to use the original plugs instead of a iridium plug. But we're going to put iridium plugs in it for the kind of riding we do. This is perfect. So this is a NGK, which is what factory was. Iridium, there's the number, CR8EIX. Let's look at what the original plug that came out was. It's also, original plug is an NGKR CR8E. So the CR8E is the same number on the iridium plug. They just follow it with a IX. All right, so let's get these installed and get the bike put back together. So on NGK's website, they actually give a torque rating, but on the box itself, what it shows you is a half a turn from contact. So they say screw it in by hand till you reach contact and then give it a half a turn. I believe that's what that diagram says. I think the torque rating is about 15 to 16 pounds, but I'm going to do what they show on the box here. Take a good look at the new plug. That's a crush washer that they've got on the new plug. And I believe that's why you can get away with the half turn. So what I've done is I've added a extension onto my adapter, and I've got my wrench up here so I can just give it a good easy half turn, and that's what we're going to do and move forward. So I wanted to show you the setup I ended up using here. So I've got my long spark plug tool with a 6-inch extension and a 3-inch extension on my torque wrench, and that fit nicely. What I found when I tried to tighten the plugs up, I could only get about a quarter of a turn before it felt way too hard. So I stopped at a quarter of a turn and put the torque wrench on it, and it torqued out right at 15 pounds. I already had at least 15 pounds in it. So the second spark plug, I stopped right at the 15 pounds. All right, so I've got some dielectric grease that I got from the automotive shop. It actually says 100% pure silicone grease on the tube, but that's what they call dielectric grease. And I'm going to show you how I do this. I'm sure there's an old mechanic out there that would tell me there's a better way to do this, but I'm going to show you what I've learned to do. So I don't want to get a whole big, I've seen guys just fill this up with grease, and I'm basically going to do that, but I've always been worried silicone grease is not conductive. So I don't want that all over the end of the spark plug where it's going to go back up into the ignition coil. So I like to put it in like that and then just take a small screwdriver and put it in and just kind of get it around the edges, because you want this grease to help that plug release next time you pull it out. So I'm going to wipe the excess off right there. There we go. And I'm going to seat this home. So I got a little grease on my fingers I got to wipe off. And let's see if our boot will go on now. Perfect. I didn't want to seat it all the way down on there. Let me get on the other side of the bike here. I can really get, there we go. Get it all the way down in there for that little rubber boot right there to seat all the way in. So probably get a little better camera angle here for you, maybe. All right, there's our other side torqued in. And we got to get the boot back on. So I've got my dielectric grease in the boot. Let's get the boot back in the, oops, about push the tank off there. Everything back down in there nicely like it came out. And bumps my tank here a little bit. So we're back on. Let's get this boot all the way down again. And I felt like it, I heard it seal. I'm gonna go to the other side of the bike here. Just make sure we're all the way down. Might be able to go a little bit further. Yep, there it is right there. All right, so we got plugs back in. I'm making sure the wires are routed. They got this little holder right here. It looks like to hold them out of the way. Probably should turn that a little better. Probably about like that, if I had to guess. I always take pictures before I take everything apart, so I'm going to go back and look at that and set those back up like they came out. One final very important step. I did put gas back in the bike, so let's turn the ignition on. Give everything just a second. Bike does have fuel injection. I don't think I drained it all the way empty, and we didn't disconnect the tank, so we should be fine. So let's give it a start. We're gonna go give it a test ride. All right, guys, let's do a post-tool review because I've got everything I used out. I use this tool. It helps a lot, especially pulling the side panels off. My rear stand, I don't think you need it, but it helps. Obviously, a torque wrench for, as we discussed on the spark plugs. And then this spark plug wrench that I use, that I happen to have, is a 5/8 with the swivel on it. That thing worked ideal. I got my socket wrench. I've got a 6-inch extension and a 3-inch extension. I use both. I like to use an extension when I use the socket wrench, just because I can reach up there and grab it. Helps me spin it. Used a 10mm and an 8mm socket. Of course, I had new spark plugs, and don't forget to pull the little end caps off. Dielectric grease. I use pliers. I use those just to pull the little end caps off. I got 2 screwdrivers. You need 1 Phillips head to pull the side panels off. I use the tiny Phillips head to smear the dielectric grease inside of the spark plug holder. And then the number 1 tool you use is a 4mm Allen wrench, and I use the heck out of this one. I love the little T-handle ones. They work really nice. I like to use a bolt holder. It holds everything, keeps it in the same place. A rag just to wipe all the dust down. I mean, I'm showing you everything. And then these are the bags I use. I use one for my seat cover. I use one for the, one for the seat screws, one for the side panel under the seat. I used one for the little air scoops on the side, and this is actually the order I took the parts off on. I took the tank side covers off, Then I took the tank cover off, and then I took the tank mounting bolts off. I had a little plastic bin to hold all my bolts and a Sharpie to label my bags. So you saw how fast I put everything back together. Folks, I've used a lot of YouTube videos over the years to help me learn how to work on my bikes and different things. If you find these videos helpful, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Really helps me to get the feedback. So thanks again for watching. Have a good day.